So we're talking about the case against those 10 American missionaries caught trying to take Haitian kids, many of whom were not orphans, out of the country. The case against them growing. Let me just show you what happened in court today. We showed you at the top of the hour. I mean, a lot of pushing and shoving as these folks were brought in. The charges against them: kidnapping, criminal association, in other words, conspiracy, not eligible for bail. The U.S. State Department saying they're monitoring developments. So let's talk to Carl Penhall, who's been following this from the get-go. So, Carl, in terms of what we know that they have said to you and others that we know is not true, what are the lies that you say you know point blank?
Well, let's not even go into the stuff they talked about in the interview. Let's talk about this little piece of paper. It's about 4 inches by 3. This is the so-called brochure that the Americans were giving out to people who were handing over children. First line: we want to help Haitian children who have lost their mother and father. That is not true. Most of these children were not orphans, and in many cases it was their own mother and or father that handed over the kids to the Americans, and the Americans knew that because their translators were translating that for them. Lie 2. New Children Refuge is a non-profit dedicated to loving and caring for orphan and abandoned Haitian children in the Dominican Republic. We understand that the organization isn't even yet registered as a non-profit, and it certainly isn't dedicated to looking after any kind of kids in the DR, because that school and orphanage is not set up yet. It is still a 45-room motel that hasn't been converted. Third lie on this single piece of paper: we have permission to bring orphan kids into our orphanage in the Dominican Republic. Not true. The Dominican consul told the Americans at 2 p.m. on Friday, you do not have the paperwork, it is illegal what you're doing, do not travel. 4 hours later at the border, the Americans were arrested. And then final lie, they're talking about you can follow the progress of your kids on our website. The website is not up and running yet, Anderson.
And so they're handing this out. I mean, essentially what we now know is they were around in Port-au-Prince trolling for kids. I mean, going around trying to collect kids under the age of 10. So for whatever reason, they could take them to the Dominican Republic. And what we had also just learned today is they had told that guy David Lewis they were actually going to bring some of these kids into the United States, or they'd offered to bring Richard's kids back to the United States, which, you know, the fact that Richard and his wife said, look, do not go to this orphanage where our kids are in the process of being legally adopted, and they went anyway to try to get them, to me that just raises all sorts of red flags.
Certainly does raise red flags, as well as the fact that they were looking for children aged from 0 to 10, kids aged under 10. I asked an NGO specialist about that. Why 0 to 10? He says kids of 0 to 10 are much easier to send in adoption. You can bet your bottom dollar if those kids were going to be sent into adoption, they weren't going to be adopted in the DR. They would have been sent abroad for that. Maybe the DR was a halfway house. I don't know that for sure, though, but certainly, you know, the people that you've talked to tonight, you can piece it together. It seems like that. And yes, certainly they were trawling for orphanages as well, because the 3 translators that we've spoken to extensively have said that they also were asked to telephone another orphanage, and that other orphanage also declined help.